The iron chains around Karzha's wrists had worn grooves into her green skin by the time the wagon rolled to a shuddering stop for the third time in as many weeks, and she did not bother lifting her head to see which new master had decided he wanted nothing to do with an orc bride after all. The first groom had taken one look at her tusks and sent her back within an hour, claiming the matchmaker had deceived him about what kind of woman he was getting. The second had kept her for 3 days, just long enough to parade her before his neighbors like some exotic beast, before declaring her unsuitable and demanding his money returned. Now the wagon driver was muttering curses as he yanked the horses to a halt, and Karzha steeled herself for whatever humiliation awaited at this third destination. "This is the Fairmont place," the driver announced without looking at her. "Last one on the list. If this does not work, you are going back to the brokers, and I wash my hands of the whole mess." Karzha said nothing. She had learned that silence served her better than protest. The bruises from the second groom's household still ached along her ribs where his farmhands had shoved her when loading her back onto the wagon. Her clothes, once the best she owned, were now travel-stained and torn at the hem. Her long black hair hung in tangles around her face. She knew what she looked like, a piece of damaged goods, a monster that even desperate frontier men did not want. The wagon door opened, and winter air rushed in. Karzha finally looked up, expecting to see another sneer, another set of disgusted eyes. Instead, she saw a man with dark brown hair and kind blue eyes holding a steaming clay cup in both hands. He wore simple wool clothing and sturdy boots, and his breath misted in the cold air as he spoke. "You must be frozen," he said quietly. "I made tea. It is not much, but it is hot." Karzha stared at him, at the cup, at his face searching for the trick, the cruelty that always came. But Wesley Fairmont simply stood there holding out the tea with steady hands, waiting. Her voice came out as a rasp. She had barely spoken in days. "My hands." She raised her chained wrists. The driver had insisted on keeping her bound after the second groom reported that she had looked at him wrong. Wesley's jaw tightened as he saw the iron, saw the raw skin beneath. "Get those off her," he said to the driver, his voice dropping to something hard and flat. "Now see here, I have my orders. I said get them off." Wesley did not raise his voice, but something in his tone made the driver fumble for his keys. "She is on my property now. She is under my care. Remove the chains." The locks clicked open, and Karzha's arms dropped heavily to her sides. Her shoulders screamed in relief after being held in the same position for so long. She rubbed at her wrists, feeling blood flow back into her fingers. Wesley held out the tea again. This time, Karzha took it. The cup was warm against her cold palms, and the steam carried the scent of herbs and honey. She sipped carefully, and the hot liquid burned all the way down in the most wonderful way. "Thank you," she whispered. "Can you walk? The house is just up the hill. I have a fire going and soup on the stove." Wesley turned to the driver. "You can unhitch the horses in the barn. I assume you will be staying the night before heading back." "I need payment first," the driver said, "and her papers signed. Proof of delivery." "Papers can wait until you have rested and eaten. Unhitch the horses. I will not say it again." Wesley offered Karzha his hand. "Careful, the ground is icy." Karzha hesitated, then placed her hand in his. His grip was firm and warm, and he helped her down from the wagon with the same care he might show a human woman. Her legs nearly buckled after so long cramped in the wagon, but Wesley steadied her without comment. "Lean on me if you need to," he said simply. They walked together up a narrow path toward a modest farmhouse. Smoke curled from the chimney, and lamplight glowed in the windows. Bare trees surrounded the property, their branches stark against the gray winter sky. Snow dusted the fields, and in the distance, Karzha could see a barn and several outbuildings. It was a small farm, clearly worked by one man alone, but it was tidy and well maintained. Wesley opened the door, and warmth rushed over her. The interior was simple but clean. A stone fireplace with a crackling fire, a wooden table with 2 chairs, shelves lined with books and preserves, a rocking chair near the hearth. Herbs hung drying from the rafters, and the soup bubbling on the stove smelled like heaven. "Sit," Wesley said, gesturing to the rocking chair. "That is the warmest spot. I will get you more tea and some food." Karzha lowered herself into the chair, hardly believing what was happening. She watched as Wesley moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, ladling soup into a bowl, cutting thick slices of bread, pouring more tea. He set everything on a small side table next to her chair, then pulled the other chair over so he could sit facing her. "Eat as much as you want," he said. "There is plenty." Karzha picked up the spoon with shaking hands. The soup was rich with vegetables and barley, seasoned with herbs. She tried to eat slowly to maintain some dignity, but hunger overtook her. She had not had a proper meal since before the first groom sent her back. Wesley said nothing, just rose and refilled her bowl when she finished, bringing more bread and a small pot of butter. By the third bowl, the shaking in her hands had stopped. By the fourth, she felt almost human again. Almost like a person instead of cargo. "Better?" Wesley asked when she finally set down the spoon. Karzha nodded. "Why are you being kind to me?" "Why would I not be? Because I am an orc. Because 2 men before you took one look at me and decided I was not worth keeping. Because everyone knows orcs are monsters." The words came out bitter but steady. She was so tired of pretending it did not hurt. Wesley was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes studying her face. "I lost my wife 2 years ago," he finally said. "Fever took her in the winter, fast and brutal. We had only been married 3 years. We wanted children, wanted to fill this house with noise and life, but we never got the chance." He looked down at his hands. "I know what it is like to be looked at with pity. To have people whisper and wonder why you are still here, still working this farm alone. The matchmaker wrote to me months ago, said he had a woman who needed a home and a husband willing to see past differences. He told me you were strong, hard-working, and had been treated cruelly through no fault of your own. That was enough for me. You knew I was an orc. Yes, the matchmaker was honest about that." Wesley met her eyes again. "I also know that the frontier is hard and survival takes strength. I would rather have an honest partner who can pull her weight than a delicate flower who will wilt at the first hardship. And I know that judging someone by their skin or their tusks is the mark of a small mind." He paused. "Though I admit, I did not know about the chains. That was cruel and unnecessary, and I am sorry you endured it." Karzha felt something crack open in her chest, some long, frozen part of her that had stopped believing anyone would ever speak to her with simple human decency. She blinked hard against the sudden burning in her eyes. "I do not know if I can be what you need," she said hoarsely. "I am not gentle. I am not graceful. I know farm work and fighting and how to survive, but I do not know how to be a proper wife." "Then we will figure it out together," Wesley said. "I am not asking you to be someone you are not. I am asking if you are willing to try building a life here. There is a spare room where you can sleep until you are comfortable. You can work beside me on the farm or find your own tasks. We can take as much time as you need to decide if this arrangement suits you. But I promise you this, I will not send you back like spoiled goods. Whatever happens, you have a home here as long as you want it." The tears came then, hot and sudden, and Karzha could not stop them. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. All the fear and humiliation of the past weeks came pouring out, and she could not hold it back any longer. She heard Wesley rise, heard his footsteps cross the room. A soft blanket settled around her shoulders, and then he moved away again, giving her space to weep in private. She heard him stoking the fire, heard the clink of dishes being washed. He hummed quietly as he worked, a gentle tune that somehow made it easier to breathe through the sobs. When Karzha finally lifted her head, Wesley was sitting at the table with papers spread before him. He glanced up and offered a small smile. "The driver needs these signed," he said. "Proof that you arrived safely and that I accept the arrangement, but I will not sign them until you tell me it is what you want. If you want to go somewhere else, want to return to your own people, I will help you. You are not a prisoner here." Karzha wiped her face with the blanket. "I have no people. My clan cast me out when I agreed to go to the human matchmaker. They said I was betraying our blood, choosing survival over pride. I have nowhere else to go." "Then stay here," Wesley said simply. "Not because you have no choice, but because I am offering you one. Stay and let us see if we can make something good out of this situation." Karzha looked around the small, warm house. She looked at the man who had met her wagon with hot tea, who had removed her chains and fed her without asking for anything in return. She thought about the alternative, returning to the matchmaker, being sold again to another man who would likely treat her even worse. "I will stay," she said. "I will try." Wesley smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Good, that is all I ask." He signed the papers with a flourish, then rose. "Let me show you the spare room. You should rest. Tomorrow we can talk about the work that needs doing, but tonight just sleep." The spare room was small but cozy, with a narrow bed piled with quilts, a wooden chest, and a window that looked out over the snow-covered fields. Wesley brought her a pitcher of water and a clean washcloth, then bid her good night and closed the door softly behind him. Karzha stood in the center of the room for a long moment, just breathing. Then she washed her face and hands, unlaced her boots, and crawled under the quilts. The bed was soft, the blankets heavy and warm. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. She slept without dreaming and woke to pale sunlight streaming through the window. The smell of frying bacon and fresh bread filled the house. Karzha rose, splashed more water on her face, and braided her hair as best she could with stiff fingers. When she emerged from the room, Wesley was setting 2 plates on the table. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "I hope you are hungry." They ate together in comfortable silence, and then Wesley pushed back from the table. "I need to check on the animals and mend a section of fence that came loose in the last storm. You are welcome to come with me, or you can rest more if you need to." "I will come," Karzha said immediately. Idleness had never suited her, and she wanted to prove she could be useful. Wesley nodded and fetched 2 heavy coats from pegs by the door. He handed her one, and though it was too large, it was warm and well made. They pulled on boots and gloves, then headed out into the crisp morning air. The barn was small but well organized. Wesley had 2 cows, a handful of chickens, and a sturdy plow horse named Jasper. He moved among the animals with easy confidence, checking their water, distributing feed, talking to them in a low, soothing voice. Karzha helped where she could, mucking stalls and hauling fresh hay. The work felt good, felt right. Her muscles remembered the rhythm of farm labor, and she fell into it gratefully. "You have done this before," Wesley observed as they worked side by side. "My clan lived on the border between orc territory and human lands. We farmed and hunted. Everyone worked." Karzha hefted a full bucket of water easily, her orcish strength making the task simple. "I have been doing farm work since I was old enough to carry a bucket. Then you will be a blessing here. This place has been too much for one person to manage properly." Wesley finished spreading fresh straw in the horse's stall. I have been letting some of the fields go fallow because I cannot work them all. With your help, we could expand again. Maybe plant more wheat, get a few pigs. You would trust me with that much responsibility. Why would I not? You know the work and you are strong enough to handle it. Besides, this farm is as much yours now as mine. We are partners in this. Partners. The word settled warm in Karzha's chest. She had been called many things in her life, but never that. They spent the morning working together, and Karzha found herself relaxing into the routine. Wesley was patient when explaining how he wanted things done, and he listened when she offered suggestions based on her own experience. He did not order her around like a servant, but worked alongside her like an equal. By midday, they were both hungry and tired. Wesley heated leftover soup for lunch, and they sat together at the table, boots drying by the fire. I should go into town next week, Wesley said, tearing off a piece of bread. Stock up on supplies before the next snow. You can come with me if you want or stay here if you prefer. Karzha thought about facing a town full of humans, all of them staring at the orc woman with Wesley Fairmont. Will people give you trouble for taking me in? Wesley shrugged. Some might talk. Let them. I stopped caring what the gossips think after my wife died and half the town tried to marry me off to their daughters. My life is my own, and who I choose to share it with is nobody's business but mine. Still, I do not want to make things harder for you. You are not making anything harder. You are making this farm function again. That is worth more than any number of dirty looks from narrow-minded fools. Wesley met her eyes across the table. But truly, you decide. I will not force you to go anywhere you do not want to go. I will think about it, Karzha said. The days that followed fell into a gentle pattern. They rose with the sun, worked together through the morning, shared meals, and spent evenings by the fire. Wesley often read aloud from his books while Karzha mended clothes or worked on small repair projects. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, listening to the wind outside and the crackle of the flames. Karzha found herself healing in ways that went beyond the physical. The bruises faded. The raw skin on her wrists scarred over. But more than that, the tight knot of fear in her chest began to loosen. She started to believe that Wesley meant what he said, that he truly did not plan to send her away. A week after her arrival, she woke to find several inches of fresh snow blanketing the farm. Wesley was already up, bundled in his coat and heading out to check on the animals. "Stay inside," he called over his shoulder. "The drifts are deep and there is ice under the snow. I can handle it." But Karzha pulled on her borrowed coat and followed him anyway. She was stronger than him, better suited to breaking through the deep snow. Together they cleared a path to the barn, fed the animals, and hauled extra water from the well before it could freeze solid. By the time they finished, they were both red-cheeked and breathless. Wesley looked at her and started to laugh, and after a moment, Karzha found herself laughing too. They stood in the snow, two people who should have been strangers, and laughed until their sides ached. "Come on," Wesley gasped finally. "Let us get inside before we freeze solid." They stripped off their wet outer layers by the fire and huddled close to the flames. Wesley made hot cider with spices, and they drank it while their clothes dried. Karzha felt something warm unfurling in her chest, something that had nothing to do with the fire or the cider. She glanced at Wesley and found him watching her with a soft expression she could not quite name. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for your help, for staying." "Thank you for giving me a reason to stay," Karzha replied. That night, after Wesley had gone to bed, Karzha stood at her window and looked out over the moonlit snow. She thought about her clan, about the orc warriors who had called her a traitor for seeking a life among humans. She thought about the two grooms who had rejected her without even trying to know her. And she thought about Wesley, who had met her wagon with hot tea and had been offering her kindness every day since. She did not know if what she was feeling was love. She had never been in love before, did not know what it was supposed to feel like. But she knew she looked forward to seeing Wesley's face each morning. She knew she liked the sound of his voice, the way he hummed while he worked, the careful way he treated everything and everyone around him. She knew that when he smiled at her, something in her chest felt too big for her ribs. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was a start. The winter deepened, and the work on the farm became a battle against the cold. Wesley and Karzha developed a rhythm, moving around each other with increasing ease. She learned that he liked his tea strong and sweet, that he had a habit of talking to the animals as if they understood every word, that he got a small furrow between his eyebrows when he was concentrating. He learned that she was strongest in the early morning, that she had a gift for fixing broken tools, that she hummed old orc working songs when she thought no one was listening. One evening, about 3 weeks after her arrival, Wesley set down his book and looked at her seriously. "I want to ask you something, but I do not want you to feel pressured," he said. "If the answer is no, nothing changes. You still have a home here. Do you understand?" Karzha's heart began to pound. "I understand. The matchmaker contract says we have until spring to decide if we want to formalize the marriage. Right now, legally, you are under my guardianship, but we are not actually married. When spring comes, we can either make it official or dissolve the arrangement." Wesley leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "I know it has only been a few weeks, and I know you have been through hell before you got here. I am not asking you to decide now. I just want you to know that when spring comes, if you are willing, I would like to make this real. Not because of any contract, but because I have come to care for you, because I think we make a good team, because this house feels like a home again with you in it." Karzha's throat felt tight. "You want to actually marry me?" "An orc. I want to marry you, Karzha. You being an orc is part of who you are, but it is not all you are. You are strong and clever and kind. You work hard and you make me laugh. You are patient with Jasper even when he is being stubborn, and you saved half my chickens when that fox got into the coop last week. You are a good person, and I would be honored to call you my wife." He paused. "But only if that is what you want. Take all the time you need to decide." "What if I already know my answer?" Karzha asked softly. Wesley looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "Then I am listening." "Yes," Karzha said. "When spring comes, my answer is yes." The smile that spread across Wesley's face was like sunrise. He rose and crossed to her chair, then knelt so they were at eye level. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he reached out and took her hand in his. "You have made me very happy," he said quietly. Karzha squeezed his fingers, feeling the calluses that matched her own. "You gave me back my life. You saw me when everyone else saw a monster. How could I not want to stay with you?" "I never saw a monster," Wesley said. "From the moment you stepped off that wagon, all I saw was a woman who had been treated abominably and deserved so much better." He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles gently, a gesture so tender it made Karzha's eyes burn. Then he stood and returned to his chair, picking up his book again as if nothing world-changing had just happened. But Karzha could see the pleased smile he was trying to hide, and her own mouth curved in answer. That night, she lay in bed and let herself imagine a future. She imagined spring planting, summer harvests, autumn preserves, and winters by the fire. She imagined children, strong and healthy, who would grow up knowing they were loved regardless of what they looked like. She imagined growing old beside Wesley, their hands weathered by work and time, still finding reasons to laugh together. It was a good future. A future worth fighting for. The winter storms came in earnest after that, sometimes trapping them inside for days at a time. They made the best of it, cooking together, raiding, playing card games that Wesley taught her. Karzha learned that he was terrible at cards but too competitive to admit it, and she learned to let him win occasionally just to see him grin. Wesley learned that she had a wicked sense of humor and a talent for storytelling, and he would sit enthralled as she recounted tales from orc folklore. "Your people have such rich traditions," he said one night after she finished a story about a clever orc woman who outsmarted a dragon. "It is a shame humans and orcs have been enemies for so long. We could learn so much from each other." "Fear makes people stupid," Karzha said. "Both humans and orcs. We fear what we do not understand, so we lash out instead of learning." "Well, I am learning," Wesley said. "And I like what I am discovering." As the weeks passed, they grew more comfortable with casual touches. Wesley would brush snow from Karzha's hair after they came inside. Karzha would steady him with a hand on his back when the ice made the path treacherous. They sat closer together on the bench by the fire, until eventually they were hip to hip, sharing warmth and space without thinking about it. One particularly cold night, Wesley suggested they push their chairs together to conserve heat. Karzha agreed, and they ended up with her in the rocking chair and him in the wooden chair pulled close beside her, a large blanket draped over both of them. They sat like that for hours, reading and talking quietly, and when Karzha's head drooped onto Wesley's shoulder, he simply adjusted his position to make her more comfortable and kept reading aloud until she fell asleep. She woke later to find him dozing too, his head tipped back against the chair. The fire had burned low and the house was cooling. Karzha carefully extracted herself from the blanket and built up the fire, then touched Wesley's shoulder gently. "You should go to bed," she whispered. "You will hurt your neck sleeping like that." Wesley blinked awake, momentarily disoriented. Then he focused on her face and smiled sleepily. "Did I fall asleep? I am sorry, I did not mean to drop off on you. We both needed the rest. Come on, get to bed properly." He rose stiffly and stretched, then paused. "Karzha, thank you for everything, for giving this a chance." "Thank you for making it easy to give it a chance," she replied. They stood there in the dim firelight, close enough that she could feel his warmth. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her, and her heart raced at the possibility. But Wesley just squeezed her hand gently and headed to his room. Karzha touched her lips, wondering what it would be like to kiss him. Wondering if he thought about it too. The next morning, she woke to an unusual silence. The wind had stopped, and when she looked out her window, the world was transformed. The storm had passed, and everything was covered in pristine white snow that sparkled in the bright sunlight. It was breathtakingly beautiful. She dressed quickly and found Wesley already in the kitchen, making breakfast. He looked up when she entered and grinned. "Beautiful day," he said. "Cold but clear. I thought we might take a walk after chores if you are interested. There is a frozen pond about a mile from here that is lovely in winter." "I would like that," Karzha said. They worked quickly through the morning tasks, then bundled up and set out across the snow-covered fields. Wesley was right. The pond was beautiful, a perfect oval of ice surrounded by snow-laden trees. The whole world seemed to glow white and blue and gold where the sun hit the ice. "I used to come here with my wife," Wesley said quietly. "She loved it in winter. Said it looked like something from a fairy story." Karzha glanced at him, trying to read his expression. "Does it hurt to come here with me?" "No," Wesley said thoughtfully. "It feels right, actually. Like I am not forgetting her, but I am not frozen in the past either. She would have liked you, I think. She always said she wished she were stronger, more capable. You are everything she wished she could be." "I am sure she was strong in her own ways," Karzha said gently. "She was, just differently." Wesley turned to look at her. "I loved her very much. I want you to know that, but I am not trying to replace her with you. You are your own person, and what I am starting to feel for you is different. Not better or worse, just different. Does that make sense? It does, Karzha said. And I am glad you loved her. It means you know how to love, how to be a partner. I would worry more if you had no grief for her at all. Wesley nodded, looking relieved. They stood together in the snow, watching the sun move across the frozen pond, and Karzha felt the last of her walls crumble. She was not just staying here out of necessity anymore. She was staying because she wanted to, because she was falling in love with this gentle man who saw her as a person, not a monster. "Wesley," she said softly. "Yes, can I hold your hand?" He smiled and offered his gloved hand. She took it, and they stood there together, fingers intertwined, watching the winter sun paint the snow gold and pink. They walked back slowly, reluctant to break the peaceful spell of the afternoon. As they approached the house, they saw a horse and rider coming up the road. Wesley tensed slightly. "That is Harold from the next farm over," he said quietly. "He is a decent man, but he is also the biggest gossip in the county. Whatever he sees today will be all over town by tomorrow." "Do you want me to go inside?" Karzha asked, though the thought stung. "Absolutely not. You have done nothing wrong, and I will not hide you like a shameful secret." Wesley squeezed her hand. "Keep your head high. You belong here." The rider, a grizzled man of about 50, pulled up his horse and looked between them with open curiosity. His eyes lingered on Karzha's green skin and tusks, and his eyebrows climbed toward his hairline when he noticed their joined hands. "Wesley," he said cautiously, "I heard you had taken in a mail-order bride, but I did not realize she was—" "My name is Karzha," she said firmly, meeting his eyes without flinching. "I am Wesley's intended wife. It is nice to meet you, Harold. Wesley has mentioned you." Harold blinked, clearly not expecting her to speak so directly. Yes. Nice to meet you too, Miss Karzha." He turned to Wesley. "I actually came by to see if you needed help digging out after the storm. Your place is the farthest out, and I thought you might be snowed in." "That is kind of you," Wesley said, sounding genuinely pleased. "We have managed, but I would not say no to help clearing the road a bit. It would make the trip to town easier next week." "I will grab my shovel then," Harold said, dismounting. He looked at Karzha again, and she saw him reassessing. "You know how to use a shovel, miss?" "I do," Karzha said. "Well then, let us get to it." They worked together for the next 2 hours, clearing the worst of the drifts from the road. Harold was clearly watching Karzha, but as the work progressed, his expression shifted from suspicion to grudging respect. She was stronger than both men combined, able to shift snow that would have taken them 3 times as long. When they finished, Harold accepted Wesley's offer of hot food and coffee. They sat around the table, and Harold asked careful questions about where Karzha was from and how she had ended up on the frontier. Karzha answered honestly, and she saw him soften further when she mentioned being cast out by her clan. "That is rough," he said gruffly. "Family should not turn their backs on their own, no matter the reason. My daughter married a fellow I did not approve of, but I still walked her down the aisle. Family is family." "I appreciate that sentiment," Karzha said quietly. When Harold finally left, he shook both their hands. "You have got a good, strong woman there, Wesley. Do not listen to anyone who tries to tell you otherwise." After he rode away, Wesley closed the door and leaned against it, laughing with relief. "Well, that went better than I expected. If Harold approves of you, half the county will follow suit. He has that much influence." "He seems like a good man," Karzha said. "He is. Gruff and nosy, but good-hearted." Wesley pulled her into a sudden hug, and Karzha stiffened in surprise before relaxing into it. He was warm and solid, and she let herself lean on him for a moment. "You handled that perfectly. I am proud of you." I just told the truth, Karzha said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. That takes more courage than you think, Wesley said softly. He pulled back to look at her, his hand still resting on her shoulders. You could have hidden, could have let me speak for you. But you stood tall and claimed your place here. That matters. Karzha felt her face heat, though she was not sure if it was from embarrassment or pleasure. I learned from watching you. You never apologize for who you are. I decided I should not either. Good, Wesley said. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed her forehead gently. You are remarkable, Karzha. I hope you know that. Her breath caught and she looked up at him. He was so close, his blue eyes warm and sincere. She could feel his breath on her face, could see the faint freckles across his nose that she had never noticed before. Her heart hammered in her chest. Wesley, she whispered, I think I am falling in love with you. His eyes widened, and then his whole face lit up with joy. I know I am falling in love with you, he said. I have been trying not to rush you, trying to give you time, but God, Karzha, you make me happier than I have been in years. Then, why are we waiting? She asked. Why are we pretending we are not both feeling this? Because I do not want you to feel obligated. Because you have been through so much, and I do not want to take advantage. Karzha cut him off by pulling him down and kissing him. It was clumsy and tentative, their tusks making the angle awkward, but Wesley made a soft sound of surprise and pleasure and kissed her back with gentle fervor. His hands came up to cup her face, careful of her tusks, and she wrapped her arms around his waist and held on tight. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wesley was grinning like a fool. That was, he began. Overdue, Karzha finished, and they both laughed. They stood in the middle of the kitchen, foreheads pressed together, just breathing each other in. Karzha felt like her chest might burst with happiness. This man, this wonderful, kind, stubborn man, loved her, not despite what she was, but including all of it. So, Wesley said eventually, does this mean we are not waiting until spring? I think it means we are engaged in truth now, not just on paper, Karzha said. But I still want to wait until spring for the actual marriage. I want to do this right, with witnesses and vows and everything proper. I want everyone to know that you chose me and I chose you with clear heads and full hearts. That sounds perfect, Wesley agreed. He kissed her again, softer this time, a promise of more to come. I will do everything I can to make you happy, Karzha. I swear it. You already have, she said simply. The winter stretched on, but everything felt different now. They were openly affectionate, stealing kisses while working, holding hands by the fire, falling asleep together on the bench and having to stumble to their separate beds in the small hours of the morning. Wesley started planning the spring planting with her input, asking her opinion on crop rotation, and whether they should get pigs or goats. Karzha felt herself settling into the role of partner, of co-owner of this small farm, and it fit her better than anything ever had. In late February, Wesley declared they needed to go to town for supplies. We are running low on flour and salt, and I want to order some seeds for spring. Plus, I want to introduce you to people properly, not just as the orc woman I took in, but as my fiancé. Karzha was nervous, but she agreed. She borrowed Wesley's best cloak and braided her hair carefully, trying to look as respectable as possible. Wesley hitched Jasper to the small wagon, and they set out on a clear, cold morning. The town was small, just a main street with a general store, a blacksmith, a tavern, and a few other businesses. People stopped and stared as they rolled in, and Karzha felt a familiar knot of fear form in her stomach. But Wesley jumped down from the wagon and offered her his hand with a proud smile, and she took it. They walked into the general store together, and the conversations inside died away. The shopkeeper, a thin woman with sharp eyes, looked Karzha up and down. This is Karzha, Wesley announced clearly. "My fiancée. We will be married in the spring. I would appreciate it if you would extend her the same courtesy you show me." The shopkeeper's eyes narrowed, but she nodded slowly. "What do you need, Wesley?" They did their shopping, and though people whispered, no one was openly hostile. Wesley treated Karzha exactly as he would any other woman, asking her preferences, deferring to her judgment on household goods. Slowly, the townspeople seemed to relax. If Wesley Fairmont, respected member of the community, thought this orc woman was worthy of marriage, perhaps there was more to her than met the eye. They were loading the wagon when a young woman approached, maybe 20 years old, with flour smudges on her apron. "Excuse me," she said shyly to Karzha. "I just wanted to say, I think it is brave what you are doing. My mother is from the eastern tribes and my father is from here. I know what it is like to be caught between two worlds. I hope people treat you kindly." Karzha felt her throat tighten. "Thank you, that means more than you know." The young woman smiled and hurried away. Wesley touched Karzha's back gently. "See, not everyone is an idiot." On the way home, they stopped at Harold's farm. His wife, Martha, a robust woman with a warm smile, invited them in for tea and subjected Karzha to a thorough but friendly interrogation. By the end of the visit, Martha was giving her advice on the best way to preserve vegetables and promising to bring over some of her prized jam recipes. "You have got a good man in Wesley," Martha said as they were leaving, "and he has clearly got a good woman in you. Do not let the narrow-minded fools get you down. The frontier needs strong people, and you are clearly strong." As they drove home through the twilight, Wesley reached over and squeezed Karzha's hand. "That went well, I think." "Better than I expected," Karzha admitted. "I was prepared for much worse. People around here are practical. They can see that you are a hard worker and that you make me happy." "That goes a long way," he paused. "And honestly, I think you impressed them. You did not cower or apologize. You stood beside me as an equal, and people respect that." That night, curled up together on the bench with a blanket over their laps, Karzha felt truly content for the first time in her life. She had a home, a partner, and the promise of a future. The past was behind her with all its pain and rejection. Ahead lay spring, marriage, and a life built on mutual respect and growing love. "What are you thinking about?" Wesley asked, his thumb rubbing circles on the back of her hand. "How lucky I am," Karzha said. "If those first two grooms had not sent me back, I would never have ended up here. I would never have met you." "Then I am grateful to them for being idiots," Wesley said. "Their loss is very much my gain." Karzha tilted her head up and kissed him, slow and sweet. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I know we have only known each other a few months, but I love you." "I love you too," Wesley said, and kissed her again. The winter finally began to loosen its grip in early March. The snow melted, revealing muddy fields and the first brave shoots of green. Wesley and Karzha started the spring work, turning over the garden soil, repairing winter damage, preparing for planting. The days grew longer and warmer, and with them, Karzha's certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. They set the wedding for the first week of April, when the weather would be fair and the roads passable. Wesley wanted to do it properly, with a minister and witnesses and a celebration. He invited Harold and Martha, a few other neighbors, and sent word to the town. "I want everyone to see that this is real," he told Karzha. "That we are choosing this with open eyes and full hearts. I do not want anyone to be able to say you were coerced or that I was desperate. This is a true marriage, built on love." Karzha worked with Martha to make a simple dress for the ceremony. It was not fancy, just a practical blue wool dress, but it fit her well and made her feel almost pretty. Martha also taught her how to braid her hair in a more elaborate style, and gave her a small circlet of dried flowers to wear. "You look beautiful," Martha said on the morning of the wedding. "Wesley is a lucky man." "I am the lucky one," Karzha said, but she smiled. The ceremony was held in the yard of the farmhouse, under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. A traveling minister who served the frontier communities officiated. About 20 people came, more than Karzha had expected. Harold and Martha stood as witnesses. The young woman from the store was there, smiling encouragingly. Wesley wore his best clothes, which were still simple and worn, but he had trimmed his beard and combed his hair, and Karzha thought he was the most handsome man she had ever seen. When she walked out of the house to join him under the old oak tree where they would exchange vows, his eyes went wide with wonder. "You are stunning," he whispered as she took his hands. The minister began the ceremony, speaking about love and commitment and the challenges of building a life together on the frontier. Karzha barely heard him. She was too focused on Wesley's face, on the way his hands trembled slightly in hers, on the absolute certainty in his eyes. When it came time for vows, Wesley went first. "Karzha, I promise to stand beside you through every season, every hardship, every joy. I promise to see you, all of you, and to love what I see. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your husband for all the days we are given." Karzha's voice shook as she responded. "Wesley, I promise to work beside you to build a life worthy of the gift you have given me. I promise to be honest, to be strong, to be the partner you deserve. I promise to love you with everything I am, for as long as I live." The minister pronounced them married, and Wesley pulled Karzha into a kiss that made several people cheer. When they broke apart, both of them were grinning like idiots. The celebration that followed was simple but joyful. Martha and some of the other women had brought food, and someone had a fiddle. They ate and drank and danced in the spring sunshine. Karzha found herself pulled into a reel by Harold, who turned out to be a surprisingly good dancer. Wesley danced with Martha and then with Karzha, and then with several other women who wanted to congratulate him. As the sun began to set and people started to leave, Harold pulled Wesley aside. Karzha was close enough to hear. "You did good, Wesley," Harold said gruffly. "Real good. That woman is going to be the making of this farm. You take care of her." "I intend to," Wesley said seriously. "Every day for the rest of my life." When the last guest had departed, Wesley and Karzha stood in the twilight, looking at the farm that was now truly theirs together. Wesley wrapped his arms around her from behind, and Karzha leaned back into his warmth. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Fairmont?" Wesley asked softly. "It feels right," Karzha said. "It feels like coming home." That night they came together as husband and wife for the first time. It was gentle and awkward and perfect, full of whispered endearments and surprised laughter. Afterward, lying in Wesley's bed that was now their bed, Karzha felt a peace so profound it brought tears to her eyes. "Are you all right?" Wesley asked, concerned. "I am more than all right," Karzha said. "I am happy, truly, completely happy. I did not know I could feel like this." Wesley kissed her temple. "Get used to it. I plan to make you this happy every day." "That is a dangerous promise," Karzha said, but she smiled in the darkness. "Then I will enjoy the danger," Wesley replied. The spring planting began in earnest the next week. Now that they were officially married, Wesley brought up the idea of expanding the farm in earnest. With Karzha's strength and skills, they could work fields that had been lying fallow. They could build a larger barn, get more animals, maybe even hire a hand to help with harvest. "I want to build something that will last," Wesley said as they worked side by side, planting rows of wheat. "Something we can pass on to our children someday." "Children," Karzha repeated softly. She had not let herself think that far ahead. "You want children with me. Half-orc children." I want children with you because you are my wife and I love you, Wesley said firmly. And any child of ours will be loved and protected, no matter what they look like. We will raise them to be strong and kind, and we will teach them that their heritage is something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Karzha had to stop working because she was crying again, and Wesley dropped his hoe and pulled her into his arms. I am sorry, he said anxiously. I did not mean to upset you. If you do not want children, no, I do. I want them so much. I just never thought I would have them. I never thought anyone would want to have a family with me. She looked up at him through tears. You keep giving me things I thought were impossible. Then I will keep doing it for the rest of our lives, Wesley said and kissed her. The summer that followed was hard work but filled with joy. The crops grew tall and green, and the small farm thrived under their combined efforts. Karzha proved to be an excellent manager, organizing the work with military efficiency while Wesley handled the animals and the more delicate tasks that required finesse rather than strength. In June, Martha brought over a piglet, a gift from her own expanded litter. Every farm needs pigs, she said cheerfully. This little one is yours. Raise her well and you will have bacon and ham come winter. Karzha named the pig Petunia and treated her like a pet, which made Wesley laugh. You are going to have a hard time eating her come slaughter time, he warned. Then maybe Petunia will be for breeding instead, Karzha said stubbornly, and Wesley just shook his head in amusement. By August, Karzha realized she was pregnant. She waited until she was sure, then told Wesley over dinner on a warm evening. He dropped his fork, stared at her, and then let out a whoop of joy that startled the chickens outside. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, and Karzha found herself laughing too. A baby, he kept saying. We are going to have a baby. Babies do tend to result from what we have been doing, Karzha said dryly, and Wesley laughed even harder. He became almost comically protective after that, insisting she not lift anything heavy, not work too hard in the heat. Karzha tolerated it with good humor, though she pointed out that Orc women traditionally worked right up until labor began. You are not just an Orc woman, you are my wife, and I am allowed to worry, Wesley said. The harvest came in strong that year, their best in many seasons. They hired Harold's son to help with the work, and together the three of them brought in wheat and vegetables and hay. Wesley sold the surplus at market and came back with enough money to buy another cow and start a small flock of sheep. We are building an empire, he joked, counting coins at the table. We are building a life, Karzha corrected, but she smiled. As autumn turned to winter and Karzha's belly grew round with their child, she found herself reflecting on how much had changed in 1 year. A year ago, she had been a piece of cargo, rejected and chained, convinced she would never know happiness. Now she was a wife, soon to be a mother with a home and a husband who loved her fiercely. On a cold December night, as they sat by the fire with Karzha's feet in Wesley's lap while he rubbed them, she said, I never thanked you properly. For what? Wesley asked, looking up from his task. For seeing me. For meeting my wagon with hot tea instead of disgust. For giving me a chance when no one else would. Karzha placed a hand on her swollen belly. For giving me this life. Wesley set her feet down gently and moved to kneel beside her chair. He took her hands in his and looked up at her with absolute sincerity. You do not owe me thanks. You have given me just as much. You brought this farm back to life. You made me remember what it is like to be happy. You gave me love and partnership and now a child. We saved each other, Karzha. That is what love is. She leaned down and kissed him, awkward over her belly but filled with tenderness. I love you, she said, more than I have words for. I love you too, Wesley said. Always. The baby came in late February during a brief warm spell that melted the snow and made the world smell like spring. Martha attended the birth, along with the local midwife, while Wesley paced anxiously outside. The labor was long but not overly difficult, and when the baby finally emerged with a lusty cry, Karzha felt a surge of love so powerful it eclipsed everything else. "It is a boy," the midwife announced, cleaning the baby efficiently. "Strong lungs on this one." Martha brought the baby to Karzha, wrapped in soft blankets. He had Wesley's blue eyes and Karzha's green-tinged skin. His ears came to slight points, and when he yawned, Karzha could see the tiny buds that would become small tusks someday. He was perfect, a beautiful blend of both his parents. "Wesley," Karzha called weakly, and the door burst open immediately. Wesley rushed to her side, his face wild with worry. "Are you all right? Is he all right?" "We are both fine," Karzha said, smiling through tears. "Come meet your son." Wesley looked down at the baby, and his entire face crumpled with emotion. He reached out with one finger to touch the baby's tiny hand, and the infant gripped it reflexively. "Hello," Wesley whispered. "Hello, little one. I am your father, and I already love you more than anything in the world." They named him William after Wesley's father, with an Orc middle name that Karzha chose, William Granac Fairmont, a name that honored both his heritages. The days that followed were exhausting and wonderful. William was a hungry baby, demanding frequent feeding, but he was healthy and growing well. Wesley proved to be a devoted father, getting up with Karzha for night feedings, walking the floor with William when he was fussy, changing nappies without complaint. "You are a natural," Karzha said one night, watching him rock William back to sleep. "I am terrified every moment that I will do something wrong," Wesley admitted, "but I would do anything for him, for both of you." As winter gave way to spring once more, the small farm came alive with new growth. Karzha recovered her strength and returned to work gradually, often with William strapped to her back in a carrier she had made. The baby seemed to enjoy being outside, gurgling happily as his parents worked the fields. Harold and Martha came to visit frequently, doting on William like grandparents. The young woman from the store, whose name was Lily, became a friend, stopping by with small gifts for the baby. Even the minister who had married them made a special trip to bless William, declaring him a child of God regardless of his mixed heritage. One warm day in April, exactly 2 years after their wedding, Wesley and Karzha stood on the porch watching William toddle around the yard chasing chickens. He was walking now, his sturdy legs carrying him with determined wobbles. His laughter rang out clear and joyful as Petunia the pig trotted over to investigate him. "You remember when we stood here on our wedding day?" Wesley asked, his arm around Karzha's waist. "I remember," Karzha said. "I remember thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. And now?" "Now I know I am," Karzha said. She turned to face him, standing on tiptoe to kiss him properly. "Thank you, Wesley, for everything." "Thank you for stepping off that wagon," Wesley said. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank you for loving me. Always," Karzha promised. They stood together, watching their son play in the sunshine, and felt the deep contentment of a life well lived. The farm was prospering. Their love was strong. Their family was growing, and none of it would have been possible if Wesley had not met that wagon with hot tea and an open heart. In the years that followed, William would be joined by 2 siblings, a daughter named Willa with her father's brown hair and her mother's strength, and another son named Walter, who looked almost entirely human except for the slight green tint to his skin in certain lights. The farm continued to grow, eventually becoming one of the most productive in the county. Wesley and Karzha became respected members of the community, Their marriage held up as an example of how love could bridge any divide. But on that April day, with their first child laughing in the yard and the spring sun warm on their faces, they did not know about the future yet. They only knew that they had each other, and that was more than enough. Karzha leaned her head on Wesley's shoulder and watched William finally catch up to a chicken, only to have it flutter away at the last second. His expression of surprise made both parents laugh. "He has your determination," Wesley observed. "And your stubbornness," Karzha replied. "A dangerous combination," Wesley said. "The best combination," Karzha corrected. Wesley pulled her closer, and they stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching their miracle of a child explore his world without fear or shame. This was what love looked like, Karzha thought. Not grand gestures or passionate declarations, but this. Shared work, shared laughter, shared quiet moments of contentment. This was the life she had never dared dream of, and yet here it was, real and solid and hers. "I love you," she said again, because it never got old to say it. "I love you too," Wesley said. "Now and always." And that, in the end, was the whole story. Two people who should have been enemies, brought together by chance and cruelty, who chose to see each other as human instead. Who chose kindness over fear, love over prejudice, hope over despair. They built a life together from nothing but determination and caring, and they filled that life with love and children and purpose. The two grooms who had sent Karzha back like spoiled goods never knew what they had missed. But Wesley knew, and Karzha knew, and that was all that mattered. In the kitchen that evening, after William was tucked into his crib and the house was quiet, Wesley poured tea for both of them. The same tea he had offered Karzha that first day, brewed strong and sweet the way they both liked it now. They sat at the table, hands clasped between them, and sipped in comfortable silence. "Do you ever wonder," Wesley said eventually, "what your life would have been like if things had gone differently? If the first groom had kept you, or the second?" "Sometimes," Karzha admitted. "But then I remember that every terrible thing that happened led me here to you, to this life. And I would not change any of it. The pain made the joy sweeter. The rejection made this acceptance more precious. Everything that hurt me before was just the road bringing me home." Wesley lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles, the gesture as tender now as it had been the first time. "You have a poet's soul," he said softly. "I have a grateful soul," Karzha corrected. "You taught me that happiness was possible. You taught me that I was worth loving. Those are gifts beyond price." "You taught me how to live again," Wesley said. "After my first wife died, I thought that part of my life was over. I thought I would just work this farm alone until I died. But you reminded me that there is always room for more love, more life, more joy. You gave me a reason to hope again." They finished their tea in the warm glow of the firelight, then went to bed together in the room they shared. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, and the land slept peacefully. Inside, a family dreamed safe and warm, bound together by love that had overcome every obstacle placed in its path. And if the wind carried whispers of their story across the frontier, if other desperate women and lonely men heard about the orc bride and the farmer who chose kindness, if more unlikely marriages began to blossom in the wake of their example, well, that was just another gift they gave to the world. But for Wesley and Karzha, the greatest gift was each other. And the life they built, one day at a time, one kindness at a time, one act of love at a time, until the impossible became not just possible but real and lasting and true. The wagon that had carried Karzha to the Fairmont farm was long gone, returned to the matchmaker's service to transport other hopeful women to other uncertain futures. But the memory of that day remained crystal clear in Karzha's mind. The cold, the fear, the chains on her wrists, and then the door opening to reveal a man with kind eyes and a cup of hot tea. That tea had been more than a drink. It had been a promise. A statement that said, "You are a person deserving of comfort and care. You matter. You are seen." And Wesley had kept that promise every day since, in 1,000 small ways and 12 large ones. In the way he listened when she spoke. In the way he asked her opinion and valued her answers. In the way he stood beside her when the world was cruel, and celebrated with her when it was kind. In the way he loved their children fiercely, teaching them to be proud of both sides of their heritage. Years later, when William was grown and preparing to leave the farm to start his own life, he asked his mother about her past. Karzha told him the truth, about the 2 grooms who had rejected her, about the chains and the fear, and about the day his father had met her wagon with tea and kindness. "I am glad those other men were fools," William said. "If they had kept you, I would not exist. Willa and Walter would not exist. This family would not exist." "That is a good way to look at it," Karzha agreed. "Sometimes the worst things lead to the best things. You just have to survive long enough to see it. You are the strongest person I know," William said, hugging his mother. "Thank you for not giving up." "Thank you for being a reason not to," Karzha replied, holding her son close. When William finally left, riding off toward his own future with his father's blessing and his mother's love, Wesley and Karzha stood together and watched him go. They were older now, their hair streaked with gray, their hands marked by decades of hard work. But they stood together, shoulders touching, still finding comfort in each other's presence. "We did well," Wesley said quietly. "We did," Karzha agreed. "We built something good." "We built something that will last," Wesley corrected. He turned to her with a smile. "Ready to start the next chapter? Just the 2 of us again?" "With you," Karzha said, taking his hand. "Always." They walked back to the house together, 2 people who had found each other in the unlikeliest of circumstances and had built a love strong enough to weather any storm. Behind them, the farm stretched out in the golden evening light, a testament to what could be accomplished when 2 people chose to see the best in each other. And if you listen closely on quiet spring evenings when the wind blows just right across the frontier, you can still hear echoes of their story. A story of rejection transformed into acceptance, of fear transformed into love, of strangers transformed into family. A story that began with a cup of hot tea and ended with a legacy that would endure for generations. It was a story worth telling, a story worth remembering, a story that reminded everyone who heard it that kindness matters, that love is possible even in the darkest circumstances, and that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unexpected packages. Wesley and Karzha lived out their days on that small farm, growing old together with grace and contentment. They saw their children married and welcomed grandchildren who carried their mixed heritage with pride. They became legends in the county, the Orc bride and the farmer who had defied convention and built something beautiful. And when they finally passed, within months of each other as longtime married couples often do, they were buried side by side under the old oak tree where they had exchanged their vows. Their headstone was simple: Wesley and Karzha Fairmont, beloved partners, parents, and pioneers of love. But their true memorial was not stone. It was the farm that still thrived under their children's care. It was the community that had learned to look past surface differences. It was the countless couples who heard their story and found the courage to follow their own hearts despite opposition. It was the legacy of kindness that rippled outward like waves from a stone dropped in still water, touching lives they would never know about. And it all began with a cup of tea, offered to a desperate woman by a man who chose to see her suffering and respond with compassion, instead of judgment. That simple act of kindness had changed 2 lives, created a family, and ultimately helped change a community's heart. It was proof that small acts of love matter, that choosing kindness over cruelty can alter the course of history, that everyone deserves to be seen, to be valued, to be offered a cup of hot tea when they are cold and afraid. Wesley had met Karzha's wagon with hot tea, and in doing so, he had given her not just warmth for her body but hope for her soul. And she had taken that hope and transformed it into a life worth living, a love worth fighting for, and a legacy worth leaving behind. Their story ended, as all stories must. But the love they built together lived on in their children, their grandchildren, and every person who heard their tale and decided to choose compassion over fear. That love became woven into the very fabric of the frontier, a bright thread of hope running through the tapestry of hard lives and harder choices. And on quiet evenings when the tea kettle whistles and steam rises into the air, those who remember might pause and think of an orc woman and a human man who proved that love knows no boundaries, respects no prejudices, and can flourish even in the most unlikely soil. All it takes is one person willing to offer kindness to a stranger, one cup of hot tea, one open heart. The rest, as they say, is history, but more than history, it is hope. Hope that we can all be a little more like Wesley, choosing to see the person rather than the surface. Hope that we can all be a little more like Karzha, finding the courage to accept love when it is offered and build something beautiful from the ruins of rejection. Hope that tomorrow can be better than today, that strangers can become family, and that a wagon arriving in despair can depart in joy. That is the true magic of their story. Not that it happened, though that is remarkable enough, but that it reminds us all that such transformations are possible, that we all have the power to change someone's life with simple kindness, and that love, real love, is always worth fighting for. Wesley and Karzha Fairmont lived their truth and built their happiness one day at a time. They faced opposition and overcame it. They encountered prejudice and challenged it. They found love in unexpected places and nurtured it into something strong enough to last a lifetime. And in the end, is that not what we all hope for? A life lived with purpose, a love that endures, a legacy that matters. They had all three, and they earned them through the simple act of choosing each other every single day, no matter what the world said or did. Their story is complete. The circle is closed, and the ending, as all the best endings should be, is happy. Not perfect, because real life is never perfect, but happy, fulfilled, and rich with the kind of love that makes all the struggles worthwhile. So let us leave them there, in the peaceful rest they earned, their story told and their love immortalized. Let us carry their lessons forward, that kindness costs nothing but means everything, that love can bridge any divide, and that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the smallest gestures. A wagon arriving in winter, a man with a cup of hot tea, 2 hearts finding each other against all odds, and a love that changed everything. That is their story, complete, closed, and happily ever after.